In the movie Margin Call, an entire Wall Street firm basically implodes in just 24 hours. It's an incredible story. So today we're going to go inside the film and really dissect the anatomy of that crisis.
I mean, think about it. What if you were the one who found a file that proved your company was going to be completely worthless by morning? This isn't just some movie plot. No, it's the central question that kicks off this frantic 24-hour race against total financial oblivion. It's literally a ticking time bomb, and it was discovered in a spreadsheet.
So, how does it all start? Well, the whole crisis kicks off with a really dangerous discovery. It's a seemingly normal day. There's a big wave of layoffs happening, but underneath all that, a much, much deeper problem is about to come to the surface.
So picture this. The head of risk analysis, a guy named Eric Dale, is getting escorted out the door. On his way out, he hands a flash drive to this young analyst, Peter Sullivan. All he says is, "Finish the model I was working on, but be careful." Well, Sullivan stays late, works into the night, and he cracks it. And what he finds is a terrifying secret hidden right there in the numbers.
So what does he do? He immediately calls his boss back to the office in the middle of the night. Because the model, it shows the firm's potential losses aren't just big, they're greater than the entire value of the company. To put it bluntly, they're already broke. They just don't all know it yet.
Okay, so what was this fatal flaw in the numbers? What did he find? It really all comes down to a single, broken risk metric that the entire firm was relying on. It's called value at risk.
So value at risk, or VAR for short, the easiest way to think about it is like a financial weather forecast. Seriously, it's a statistical tool, and its whole job is to predict a firm's worst-case loss on any given day. So a typical VAR model might say something like this. We are 95% confident that we won't lose more than, say, $10 million in a single day, right? And this number is super important because it dictates how much risk they take on and how much cash they have to keep on hand just in case. But here's the problem. This financial weather forecast was based entirely on historical data. That means it could only predict the kinds of storms it had seen before. It had absolutely no way of accounting for the unprecedented housing crisis that was brewing. And here's the kicker. The firm's losses had already blown past their so-called maximum loss threshold, not once, but multiple times in just the last 2 weeks. The alarm bells were already ringing, but the model didn't hear them.
So what were these assets that were breaking the model? They were mortgage-backed securities, or MBS. Now what that means is basically giant pools of home loans all bundled together and then sold off as an investment. But the problem, the huge problem, was that they were built on a foundation of really toxic subprime loans. And those loans were starting to fail at a truly catastrophic rate.
Okay, but holding all these toxic assets, that was only half the problem. The real danger, the thing that turned this into an extinction-level event for the firm, was the leverage time bomb.
And this really gets to the fundamental question of the whole crisis. How? How is it even possible to lose more money than your entire company is worth? The answer is leverage. It all comes down to using borrowed money to make absolutely massive bets.
You see, leverage is a classic double-edged sword. The firm used just a little bit of its own money to borrow huge sums of money, and that magnified their bets. Now, that's great when things are going up because it amplifies your gains. But it also amplifies your losses, and it put them in this incredibly fragile, incredibly dangerous position. In fact, what Peter Sullivan's model showed was that just a 25% drop in the value of these mortgage assets, that's all it would take, would be enough to create losses greater than the entire value of the firm. It would bankrupt them. And the market? It was already heading that way, and fast. So, here we are. The clock is ticking. You've got all the top executives assembled for this crazy late-night emergency meeting, and they are faced with an absolutely impossible choice, one that will decide not just their fate, but the fate of the entire market.
You see, the firm's whole business model was pretty simple, really. They were basically middlemen. They'd buy these risky mortgage-backed securities, slice them up, repackage them into even more complex things called CDOs, and then sell those to other investors for a nice fee. The problem? The music had stopped. The market was turning toxic, and they were the ones left stuck holding the bag.
So the executives had a stark choice, right? 2 options on the table. Option 1, Sell the assets off slowly, over a few weeks. That would avoid crashing the market right away, but the assets were losing value so fast the firm would definitely go bankrupt before they were done. Or, option 2, a fire sale. Sell everything, immediately, in one day. The firm, it might survive, but they would be knowingly triggering a global market meltdown. Now, the head of the trading floor, this character Sam Rogers, he protests hard. He gets it. He understands the real human cost. This decision means they would be knowingly and deliberately passing on a financial catastrophe to their own clients, to their competitors, to the entire system. They'd be destroying decades of trust in just a few hours.
But the CEO, John Tuld, he makes a ruthless, cold-blooded decision. Save the firm. At any cost. Period. The survival of the company is the only thing that matters.
And so, over one single frantic day, the traders are ordered to dump billions in these toxic assets for cash. They sell to anyone at any price they can get. With every single phone call, they burn a relationship. And you can see it in the timeline. The prices just plummet as the rest of the market starts to get suspicious and realizes what's happening. And this is the key difference between the firm in the movie and its real-life inspiration, Lehman Brothers. In the film, the company acts decisively, ruthlessly, and it survives. In the real world, Lehman Brothers hesitated. They held on to their toxic assets for too long, and they were ultimately wiped out. And that, of course, triggered the most famous bankruptcy of the entire crisis.
And this really brings us to the cynical core of the film. Because in this chilling speech at the end, the CEO actually justifies the chaos he just unleashed. He starts listing off all these historical financial crashes, basically framing this whole disaster not as some huge failure, but as just another predictable turn in a never-ending cycle.
And his justification, it just reveals this profound detachment from the real-world consequences. For him, the trillions of dollars of value that just vaporized, the millions of jobs that were lost, it's all just an abstraction. It's just part of a game that's played with pieces of paper.
And so the film leaves us with this question that's just as relevant today as it was back in 2008. When a financial disaster like this looms, is this kind of ruthless, self-interested survival just part of the game? Or is it a sign of a catastrophic failure of the system itself? A system that maybe rewards those who save themselves at everyone else's expense?